Most people never think about cemeteries after sundown. They think of them as quiet places, resting places, nothing more than stone markers and trimmed grass. But the truth is, a cemetery is a very different world at night. It's not silent. It breathes. It remembers. And sometimes it stares back. I learned that the hard way. My name's Daniel. For 5 years, I worked nights as a groundskeeper at Hillside Cemetery, an old stretch of land on the edge of town. I was the guy who fixed broken lamps, patched fences, kept vandals out, and kept the grounds clean before families came the next morning. Most nights were boring, just me, the distant hum of cars, and acres of graves. But not every night. Some nights, something else walked those rows with me. This is my story. And if you're listening at night, share this story to scare others and keep your windows closed. The first time I noticed it, I thought it was an animal. I was making my rounds near the northern gate, where the oldest graves are, cracked stones, names you can't read anymore. It was close to 2 a.m., and the air had that heavy, electric stillness before rain. That's when I heard it. A scraping sound. Like fingernails dragging across stone. I froze. Shined my flashlight. Nothing. Just the uneven rows of graves, leaning like teeth in an open jaw. I told myself it was a stray dog, or maybe a raccoon. But as I kept walking, I heard it again, closer this time. A slow, deliberate scrape. The thing about cemeteries is, your brain fills in the blanks. Shadows start to look like people. A tree can look like someone standing perfectly still. And I swear, between the rows, I saw a shape, not moving, not walking, just standing there. When I blinked, it was gone. When I blinked, it was gone. The next week, the noises got worse. Sometimes I'd hear the gate chain rattling, even though it was locked tight. Sometimes the lamp posts would flicker one by one, like something was walking under them. But the worst was the whispering. It started faint, just enough for me to think it was the wind. But the words were too sharp, too clear. They always came when I was alone near the old mausoleum. I'd hear my name. Daniel. Once I spun around so fast I dropped my flashlight. And when I picked it up, the beam landed on the doors of the mausoleum. They were cracked open. That's impossible. Those doors hadn't been unlocked in decades. I should have left. I know that now. But back then, I thought maybe vandals had forced their way in. I called my supervisor, but of course, he didn't pick up. So I pushed the doors open. Inside, the air was heavy, colder than outside. My breath fogged instantly. The shelves that once held coffins were mostly empty, dust coating everything. But in the beam of my flashlight, I saw fresh footprints in the dust. Bare feet. Leading deeper inside. And then my light went out. I smacked it, twisted the cap, shook the batteries. Nothing. Just darkness. And in that darkness, the whispering started again. Louder this time, circling me, voices overlapping like a crowd of people speaking at once. I don't remember running out. I only remember the doors slamming behind me hard enough to rattle the ground. When I looked back, the mausoleum doors were shut. For a while, nothing happened. I convinced myself it was just exhaustion, paranoia. I even switched shifts with a coworker for a few weeks. But one night I was back. I was near the fence line, doing my last round. That's when I noticed someone standing on the other side. A man. Tall, thin, dressed in black. I called out, asked if he needed help. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there, staring at me. Then I realized, he wasn't outside the fence. He was inside. When I blinked, he was gone. No footprints in the grass. No sound of movement. After that, the activity ramped up. Tools would go missing, only to reappear in places I never left them. My keys ended up buried in the dirt once, dug just far enough to see the edge of the key ring sticking out. One night, I found every single gate unlocked, everyone. I know because I had locked them myself. And then came the night of the screams. I was near the eastern side, where the children's graves are. That's when I heard it, a scream so sharp it made my chest tighten. It wasn't far away. It was right in front of me. But there was no one there. Just rows of small headstones, each one glowing faintly in the moonlight. And for the first time, I thought about quitting. But I didn't. About 2 months before I quit, something strange started happening on the west side of Hillside. A family had buried their father. I remember, because I was on duty that night. Everything went as usual. But the next morning, the grounds looked disturbed. Not like an animal had dug, but like the soil had shifted from underneath. I filled it in, tamped the dirt down, and thought nothing of it. But the next night, the same grave looked wrong again. The earth was caved, like something had been pressing upward. By the third night, I saw it happen with my own eyes. The ground pulsed, slowly, like a chest rising and falling, as if something was breathing beneath. And then, the cross marker at the head of the grave snapped in half on its own. I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. How do you explain a grave that refuses to stay shut? Another night, I was patrolling near the children's section when I heard crying. A woman's voice, soft but desperate. It came from between 2 rows of graves. I followed it, flashlight shaking in my hand, until I saw her. A woman in a gray dress, hair hanging over her face. She was kneeling beside one of the smaller headstones, rocking back and forth. I thought she was a mourner who had snuck in. But when I called out, she froze. Slowly, her head turned toward me, though her body never moved. Her face wasn't right. The eyes were too dark, too empty. And the mouth, it was wide open, but the crying never stopped. I dropped my light. When I picked it back up, she was gone. Just the grave, and the faint sound of crying still hanging in the air. For weeks after, I swore I heard her sobbing whenever I walked past that row. One of the most terrifying nights was in early spring. Fog had rolled in, so thick you couldn't see 5 feet ahead. I stuck to the path, flashlight pointed down. That's when I heard footsteps. Dozens of them. Marching. The sound was faint at first, then grew louder, like a crowd was moving in sync. I crouched low, shining my light into the fog. Shapes began to appear, silhouettes of people walking, side by side, all moving in the same direction. Their heads were bowed, hands clasped, like mourners in a funeral procession. Except, there was no sound of breath. No shuffling clothes. Just the hollow rhythm of feet on dirt. The line passed right in front of me, vanishing into the fog. And at the very end of the procession, someone turned their head toward me. A pale face, featureless except for a mouth stretched in a grin. I backed away until the fog swallowed them all. People think the groundskeeper's office is safe. 4 walls, a desk, coffee machine, old radio. But after a while, I realized the office was worse. Late one night, I was logging maintenance reports when I heard a scratching at the door. Thought it was a raccoon. I opened it fast to scare it off. Nothing. But when I closed the door again, the scratching came from inside. I turned slowly. At the back of the office, by the filing cabinets, something was standing. It was tall, too tall for the room. Its head scraped the ceiling. No eyes, no mouth, just the hollow outline of a man, darker than the dark around it. The scratching grew louder, but it wasn't claws anymore. It was nails. Mine. I looked down. My own fingers were dragging across the desk, carving lines into the wood, and I couldn't stop them. When I snapped out of it, the thing was gone. But the scratches were still there. On my last month working nights, everything felt wrong. The air smelled like rot even though it was winter. The shadows seemed thicker. I kept catching glimpses of people standing between graves, only to vanish when I turned my light. One night, I walked past the old oak tree near the center of the cemetery. Something hung from its branches. Not a body, but dozens of old lanterns, swinging as if someone had just touched them. But here's the thing, those lanterns hadn't been there the night before. That was the same night I saw the figure again. Tall. Thin. This time, closer. His head tilted at an impossible angle, watching me. I ran. My final night shift, I told myself I was done. I was going to turn in my keys at dawn. I just had to make it through one more round. But when I walked past the mausoleum, the doors were open again. Wide this time. Inside, faint lantern light glowed, like the ones from the oak tree. Against my better judgment, I stepped in. The footprints were back. Bare feet, dozens of them, circling the floor. And in the center of the room, my flashlight flickered back to life. The one that had died weeks ago. I reached for it. And the doors slammed shut. The whispering started. Louder than ever. I couldn't make out words, just chaos, pressing in from every side. My ears rang, my chest tightened, and then, silence. The light went out. I woke up outside, lying in the grass. It was morning. The mausoleum doors were sealed shut like they'd never moved. My supervisor said I must have passed out. Heat stroke, exhaustion, excuses. But I never went back. I quit that same day. Sometimes, though, I drive by at night. I keep my eyes on the road, but I always feel it. That cemetery isn't empty. Something walks there after dark. And every now and then, when I close my eyes, I still hear it. My name. Daniel. If you like this story and want more, subscribe now to AI Storytelling YTS, and join the community. New terrifying stories are posted every week, and trust me, you won't want to miss the next one.